All right, here we go. We're going to do another react to this Hasan Asmongold shock collar stuff going on. And again, my name is Jonas Black. I'm an experienced dog trainer. I run mentorship for dog trainers. I run the world's largest canine conference. I'm one of the most sought after trainers in the world in regard to phobia and aggression rehabilitation. I advocate for proper use of the e-collars. And this is just some of the most interesting ammunition that's been brought into this argument, in particular by Asmongold here. And this person here who's responding up top, she makes some good points and also some really strange points. But let's just go ahead and just get right into it.
Moment of fucking anger for like something that is just so routine, so silly. It's the same reason as to why America, Kaya, please just fucking go, just stop.
Okay, so that response up top up there, that some people do have a very visceral response to dogs yelping, in particular due to trauma or like whatever. And yeah, I can see how somebody can be affected deeply by it.
Yep.
Jesus Christ.
It's amazing how much people are concerned about pets and much less about humans. So,
and he does make a really valid point there. As somebody in the field, we genuinely do forget that there's a human side to a lot of things.
it's not actually amazing whenever you think about the logic of empathy. So, and I agree with you that I think sometimes people place too much empathy and too much emotional weight on animals. I agree with that that opinion, but what I think, but you have to understand the reason why. If you like understand it, like I understand it, but like the reason why is because
we love animals. But he does go on to make some great points here in regards to animal-human relationships.
Animals exist at a spectrum that is below a human. So in the same way that if a person is making fun of or abusing someone with Down syndrome, for example, or somebody who's disabled, everybody will collectively get together and be like, what the fuck's wrong with you? You shouldn't do this. This is terrible, right? And it's because it's seen as predatory behavior because it's not on an even playing field. And so I think that
he makes a really solid point there. He really does.
Animals are seen, in the same spectrum as that. And so because people see it same as like a kid or somebody disabled or whatever, it's seen as predatory, abusive behavior. So the reason why I think that, there's so much empathy and so much people that are upset about this is because they see the way an animal is treated. And I think there's also a pretty big indicator, like this is a very, very common...
I'm going to stop it here. I don't just think that it's because of the way that the animal is being treated. I think that this largely has to do with political teams aligning against each other and finding the little smallest things to really pick apart about one another. I did a react video to Hasan about his usage of this collar, and that I don't think that it was necessarily proper because of the point of frustration that he was facing due to his internet being, I guess, shady or shifty or whatever.
Commonly held belief that people who are abusive to animals will become abusive to people as well.
There are a lot of studies that confirm that.
Like everybody knows like the old thing of like, oh, serial killers start with animals and then they move on to people, right? And so this is very commonly stated. Everybody thinks this. Not everybody thinks this, but a lot of people think this. And I'm not drawing conclusions with this. I'm just saying this is what's happening.
I also don't think that Hasan's going to turn into a serial killer just for having misused an e-collar out of frustration. Just throwing that out there. I think that this may be somewhat of an extreme take.
And so, Trump's about to go live. Yeah, I'll probably look at that in a little bit. But yeah, no, I'll watch it. Just give me a little bit, okay, guys? And people abusive animals already. It's abusive on stream. Yeah. And so anyway, isn't about human versus animal. It's about a creature doing absolutely nothing that would warrant being punished. You could apply this to innocent people too. No one thinks this way with an aggressive animal. You're kind of right about that, but I think also there is definitely an emotional weight that people put on animals because humans are in an advantageous position with their relationship with animals, right? And so that's the reason why. I'm just explaining I think that's the driving psychology that leads people to become so emotionally engaged in a situation like this. Take it or leave it, agree with it or disagree with it, but that's what I think about it.
He's absolutely right.
That's why I think people react that way.
Christ, what are you doing? You're being such a baby.
You know, Hasan, I always thought you were a fucking loser, but this really eliminates all doubt. To force your dog to lie on a dog bed while you, for hours, stream to your little gaggle of internet freaks and then forcibly use a shock collar on your dog.
So the place command is something commonly taught to dogs for dogs to learn to control impulses and also self-soothe in regards to like emotional regulation and this type of deal. It's actually a very common practice amongst all types of dog training, whether we're talking force-free, balanced, dog trainers who use e-collars or who don't use e-collars. It's a very common command that's taught, and it's a very common practice that's taught. It's called the art of doing nothing. And it does help a dog learn to self-soothe, which is a valuable thing for dogs to be able to do. In particular, if you teach this command, the place command, in different contexts. So that way the dog learns to self-soothe in high criteria contexts. From an emotional standpoint, since emotion drives behavior, you want the dog to be emotionally regulated.
When she dares to get out of her bed, not even participate in an aggressive or bad or unruly behavior, simply to get up and move around.
So this is implying that e-collars are for unruly, aggressive dogs, and that's really not the truth. In fact, e-collars are predominantly used for really bulletproof off-leash training, and they're fantastic. In fact, if you condition the lower level stimulus of an e-collar to mean that something good is coming, it can actually become a primer for the brain. So basically what happens is that it's a tactile stimulation that'll give a dopamine release. Then the command becomes the bridge between promise of something good to happen, being the e-collar stimulation, and then the command becomes the bridge on how to receive said rewards. So it goes stim, something good is coming. Command is the bridge, is the activity to receive something good that's going to happen. In particular, and these e-collars, they've come a long way in technology. It's no longer like a shocking current. What it is, it's a TENS unit technology. We use it on humans, but she goes on to expose her ignorance about that here in a second. And I mean ignorance with all due respect, not in an inflammatory manner.
Likely to fill a physiological need, mind you. I saw her licking her lips right before she got up. She was probably going to go get some water.
So again, crafting an emotional narrative here is what this lady is doing.
To use a fucking shock collar on your dog because she stands up is fucking insane, and you're a fucking freak. You are a fucking freak.
So really quickly, he mentioned that this dog was professionally trained, which at that point, it's yes, you look at that and go, okay, she broke a place command. Does she deserve a strong punisher like that? Probably not, because most place commands, once it's understood in clarity, and like we talked about in the last video, him and his partner not on the same page in regards to achieving clarity. So I'm a big believer that punishment shouldn't be used until clarity is achieved. Trainers who believe that punishment shouldn't be used at all are actually completely not professionals, and they're more ideologically driven than they are driven from resolving issues. And I use e-collars. I used e-collars today.
Great job. Great job.
So this can turn into learning moments for everybody here.
I'm not just some random chick on the internet, okay? I actually know a little bit about this. I have fostered and cared for hundreds of dogs, many of
Hundreds of dogs. I own one of the most successful dog training companies in the United States of America, and we do hundreds of dogs yearly, right? That is a lot of dogs. That's a big claim. Hundreds of dogs. It's also an appeal to authority here. Just because you've cared for and fostered hundreds of dogs doesn't mean that you are good at it. And I'm sorry that it doesn't. It's an appeal to authority, and there's no proof to back that up.
It's a lot of dogs.
came to me with aggression issues who left without it. And I am not a proponent of shock collars at all.
So, came to you with aggression issues, left without it. Great. Awesome. I appreciate that. But what degree of severity of dog are you actually working with here in this situation? Because a lot of dogs here within a new context are going to just start displaying survivalistic like behavior, like forward aggression or whatever, in particular if they're overstimulated, which the place command creating that type of deal is really good for decompression in order for the amygdala to really start to like slow down and prefrontal cortex and parasympathetic nervous systems to come back online. She also states that she's strongly against shock collars here, and there we go. We have more emotionally driven narratives. We have an appeal to authority, which at that point leads to her demonizing the e-collar, and here we go further, as I'm sure she's going to continue demonizing the e-collar.
To be abundantly clear, or e-collars, as y'all try to rebrand them. Okay, not a fan.
Okay, not a fan. So they're not actually rebranded. It's actually a different collar than it used to be back in the day. The e-collar is a TENS current, and it's a static current, and you can dial them in from levels from 1 to 100, right? That's why you can get a tactile stimulation that's not noxious. If you don't know what that means, go look it up. I'll just tell it to you what that means. It means that you can get a touch a tactile stimulation that's non-aversive, depending on the experience of conditioning that element. If you'd ever like to feel what a low-level current feels like, I'll happily guide you in the right direction there.
But even people who do use them in training would tell you that is not an appropriate use of a shock collar. And
It depends on what trainer is utilizing this tool. Now, do I believe that you should be using an e-collar every time a dog breaks place? I'm not a big fan of that personally. But again, the person who trained the dog here, Hasan, may just be saying or doing what they told him to do, which he's not a dog training expert. Dog training is unregulated, which presents an entirely different issue. So basically, he may have gotten bad information that he's just utilizing from the professional that he claimed to have hired. So this can actually be, he may have hired the wrong person for this dog training, and he just may be relaying the information that he was given by the person, as he said his dog was professionally trained, which is why I've offered to come retrain him, his partner, and his dog.
they have varying levels of intensity, which I know you know. So I find it incredibly freaky that you would immediately go to such an intense setting that it would elicit a yelp like that out of you.
Okay, so we don't know the setting, and eliciting a yelp isn't necessarily always pain or that he cranked the collar up. It could be a startle response due to the uncertainty and the non-clarity or the lack of understanding of what's expected from the dog. It could just be a startle response.
Your dog. That is not normal.
Is that high?
behavior.
Like,
If you
I don't
fucking
know.
must, you could at least hit her with the vibrate, but something tells me that you use it so much that she is
You could at least hit her with a vibrate. See, so this is where this person's ignorance completely comes through, and I mean that in a non-inflammatory manner. The vibrate stimulation on the e-collar not only vibrates, but it emits a decibel of a frequency that's potentially much more averse. So for her to say that all dogs should be giving a vibrate as a warning or like whatever, it's actually ignorant. It's wrong, and vibrate can scare dogs way more than the static current. I've seen it happen. I see it happen every single every day of trading these collars.
desensitized to those cues, so you have to use the more intense setting. And
So that's not true. In fact, we do want the dog to be desensitized to the cues, which the cue is a word that's misused there in dog training. What really should be happening there is that the e-collar stimulation should be desensitized to the point where it's non-aversive, to where the dog knows what to do once that stimulation is deployed, as we can build behavior into the release and the implementation of pressure. But once again, these armchair experts who are emotionally driven tend to come up with their own narratives on things in order to get their point across and get clicks and views.
then you're so sociopathic
Yeah.
that you have the nerve to ask your dog why she's being such a baby after she cried out in pain, after you fucking shocked her with an electric collar
Nope.
around her neck, you, the person who is supposed to protect her. You know what?
So, what the funny part is that most e-collar training actually does protect dogs. That's a funny thing there. Most e-collar training, it protects dogs. Look at what's happened in England with livestock killers and things like that. We've made such progress, and most e-collar training keeps dogs safe. Rattlesnake aversion, all kinds of stuff.
Hasan, how about we put a collar on you, and if you dare to get up, I'll shock you in the neck. Actually, no, you'd probably like that a little too much, wouldn't you? Especially with the platform that you have, you need to do fucking better. And I genuinely hope you do. I don't know where you live. I have so many contacts who are fear-free trainers.
I do agree that he needs to do better, and I do agree that he should own up to correcting a dog in a frustrated state. But at the same time, I also believe that showing a properly trained e-collar dog or a properly trained dog on an e-collar is very beneficial here. And now she talks about fear-free training.
That I can send to you. I know you have the fucking cash as much as you like.
So fear-free and force-free dog training. So force-free dog training, it's minimally effective. I actually teach it, and I know the limitations of it, and that you do hit a glass ceiling with it. And we'll get into that in future reacts here. But what she's doing here is she's appealing to authority. I know these trainers who do this, that, and the other. I guarantee you that none of these trainers have any of the results behaviorally that I do. And I also guarantee you right now that this person hasn't fostered hundreds of dogs. I guarantee you.
to cosplay a fucking socialist, you're a millionaire, you can pay for a dog trainer, because the reason she's getting up and acting that way, one, she's a dog, but if she's misbehaving otherwise, it's because she doesn't fucking respect you. And you know what?
So respect is something that's really interesting. If we're talking about dog and canine psychology, respect is a very human concept. It has nothing to do with the dog getting up because this is such an interesting thing, because this is like Cesar Millan dog psychology being implemented here from an armchair expert who fosters dogs, which I think is great. But what's actually happening here is that she's making these bold assumptions that dogs even know conceptually what respect is, when respect is a very human concept here. The reason why the dog got up is because the dog doesn't know what's expected of her, because there's no clarity in the context in which the dog lives, which Hasan actually divulged in the original video when he said that his partner doesn't follow through with the structure that's supposed to be in play there in his home. This is what's going on here, and this is just the truth, is that the dog doesn't know what to expect. There's no clarity. It has nothing to do with respect.
That makes two of us.
So she had to say that the whole respect thing, because she had that little snappy punchline at the end that says, oh, well, that makes two of us who don't respect one another. That makes two of us who don't respect you. It's just so petty, all this stuff. All this stuff is so petty, and it's all politically driven, and nothing here is actually beneficial to dogs. Nothing here is beneficial to Kaya. Nothing that's being said here is beneficial to canine advocacy, and that's just the truth.
Oh my God.
Again, it's coming across to me like politically misaligned personalities are going at each other and using dogs now to emotionally charge the argument and to gain leverage in the argument. All I'm saying is that none of these people really know what they're talking about.
Oh my God. What the fuck? Jesus. That's so alright. This is from Suzanne Lambert. I'm not familiar with her, but I guess now I am.
Hi, I'm Sarah McLaughlin.
I have no idea who Suzanne Lambert is, but we're going to go ahead and just show some clips of an e-collar training session that I did earlier today, just so you guys can see how happy this dog is, how happy the owner is, and what it actually looks like. This e-collar stuff is getting dragged through the mud and like on platforms that are huge, and on huge platforms who have no idea what the hell they're actually talking about when it comes to the usage of them. And it's very important that these things get out into the open and that we start to clarify things before misinformation hits the public and more of these emotional narratives hit, because these tools are life-saving tools.
This is e-collar session 1. We just conditioned. Roscoe's super smart, and he takes to things very, very beautifully. We don't start e-collar recall until our recall without an e-collar is pretty solid. We're going to stem first. Come here. There we go, and go get it. Come here, buddy. Great job. Oh, thank you. There we go.
Good boy.
Now notice
Drop.
when we stemmed, he picked up the ball, right?
Fetch.
Good boy, Roscoe.
Come.
Good boy.
Okay.
You see, because we're conditioning with play, he understands, oh, stem means I get my ball thrown, so he picks up the ball and brings it to us. But this is what e-collar training looks like from a professional. Good conditioning, you gauge to see how understanding the dog is of the stimulus, and then you bring a bunch of good shit into the equation all the time.